there's something I've been grappling with, and I recognized that I was finding, I guess, solace or validation or confirmation from certain speakers that I was listening to or platforms that I was tuning into. It's called the unholy trinity. And the unholy trinity, it's like the unofficial word for it, but it's shame, guilt, and judgment. And I think when you go through things in society, society has a very linear way that they expect things to go. It's changing a lot now. People are a lot more open-minded. But the linear path that is known when it comes to life's milestones is you go to school, you graduate, you get a job, you get married, you start a family, you know what I mean? That's like the linear path. And so in as much as we've come a long way as society, still, when that linear, quote unquote, path is disrupted, it's then met with guilt, shame, judgment. More so for women, because, oh, you're no longer married. There's a judgment from society, and then there's a shame that you carry. Or, oh, you're parenting, you're co-parenting or whatever it is, there's a guilt that you carry. So at any given time, Moss, you're grappling with the unholy trinity, and we don't talk about it enough because people even feel shame bringing that out. The reason I'm okay talking about it is because it's a recognition that it's something that so many people are navigating. And I've been watching some really interesting, let's say, platforms from Sarah Jakes Roberts to Megan Ashley and they talk, these people have lived these experiences. They're faith-based, but they're also relatable. And I know there's many others who people can talk to, and you can leave it in the comments below. But it gives you so much validation when you realize it's a global thing.
Yes, it is. And these three things are both internal and external.
Yes.
So you fight with them.
And then you're fighting with other people with them. That's so true. And you know what I read somewhere? Guilt says I did wrong. Shame says I am wrong. So shame is the heavier one because you're walking around with a cloud, with a shadow of saying, I'm wrong, there's something wrong with me. Whereas guilt is I did that wrong and I shouldn't repeat it again.
Psychologically, the way I escape such is by relating to someone who has gone through it.
100%.
Because they're able to walk a journey with you, if at all you can access them. But also, you can get this information from books, online, and get to see someone who has had your experience.
Yes.
So this is validating and also comforting.
I love that. It's about finding the resources. Do men carry guilt, shame, and judgment the same way women do? Because statistically, women carry it more because of how society and patriarchy is shaped. It doesn't mean men don't, but I'm curious about how men carry it.
Men do. It's just that they don't share. So statistically, you'll get higher numbers from women. Why? They communicate.
That's true.
Men fight within until it's at a point they can't handle by themselves.
And usually it's at a bad point, it's a breaking point.
Yeah, it's a breaking point.
Yeah.
But thankfully, not every man gets to that point. So someone might go through it, keep it, and fight it. Psychologically, also, men overcome really quick.
Do they though? Does it linger?
Yes.
You overcome and keep it moving.
Yeah, you keep it moving. I'll get back and use that to power the next move.
Thank you. I love two things you've said. Number one, the one about the power. I heard something very interesting the other day. When power moves in you, you make power moves.
Yes, because you can never distract power.
You can't distract. That's actually a title of Sarah Jakes Roberts' book, Power Moves. And when I watched how it came about, it's very powerful. So what you say, because it's men and women can actually use it to fuel. The reason why it affects or is said to affect women more is because of the constant gaslighting from society. Oh, you're not yet. Oh, Kwani, what happened? Why is it? You're almost questioned like you have a mark on your face that you did something wrong. And so the judgment and shame keeps going. I appreciate that men also feel it. And basically, a lot of the time for women, the reason why it persists is because either, oh, you're not married, you don't have a kid, something's wrong. And then you have a child, and then there's the mom shaming. Mom shaming is a huge, horrible global thing where you're actually parenting, but you're being criticized about the choices you're making. And I'm not talking about problematic choices. I'm talking about, I posted a picture of my child with a hat and somebody is saying, you can't put a child in a hat, whatever it is. And then you go through, there's postpartum blues and postpartum depression. Postpartum blues, most women go through it. It's usually 2 to 3 weeks to a month. It's basically the shift in your hormones, the shift in your life, this whole thing. I had postpartum blues, but when you know that it's part of the transition, more often than not, you're able to come out the other side. Postpartum depression is what needs a lot of empathy, support, and clinical support as well. So
that's what I'm saying. Like the ladies' side of it shows.
Yes.
You can see it.
Yeah.
That's why it's very easy to carry the shame, the judgment.
And to be a target of shame and judgment
yes.
and guilt.
But for a man, even when they're going through it, it doesn't show because there's nothing physical that is changing. When you become a mom, something will change.
Yeah.
So if a man marries today and walks out here, you can't tell because there's nothing changing physically. So the only man who suffers the most is when one is married and they don't have a kid together with them. So that's when a man comes close to what a lady experiences.
That's really interesting.
But internally,
Yeah.
we all fight the same demons. The difference is the take from
society. The difference is the excessive pressure that's still put on women and girls to achieve certain milestones. So it says here, shame keeps people trapped, preventing them from being okay with who they are or believing they're good enough. People with shame tend to experience a lot of guilt, so they go together, often stemming from a cycle of dysfunctional patterns and a downward spiral of behaviors that ultimately makes them feel worse. The decision to let go of shame versus stay stuck in a place of shame is ultimately a choice. It's not easy. It takes a lot of strength, courage, and determination to face the ugly shame monster, but doing so will grant us the opportunity to move forward with a happier, more fulfilling future. This is from goodtherapy.org. Let me tell you something, Moss. The shame and guilt and judgment ebbs and flows with life. And again, I always speak from an understanding that I have information, privilege, access to work, access to opportunities. Some might say, people like me don't have a lot to be ashamed or guilty. That's also society, right? But you have so much going for you. What I'm trying to say is every single human being in the world, no matter how successful, how unsuccessful, no matter how much access, lack of access, this unholy trinity resides in us at certain times in life. Good for you if you've never had to harbor any of it. The difference is, yes, there is a societal heavier expectation and projection upon women and girls. Men also feel it. But for us, sometimes people use it as a way to remind you of who you are. No matter how well you do, no matter how well you're able to scale and persevere and push through.
Even when it's not your fault.
Even when it's not your fault. Amen, Moss, for saying that. Even when it's not your fault. And I think I want to validate somebody who's going through it, number one. Number two, there's a way you can carry this thing that nobody can hold it against you. What I'm saying as my experience, if somebody decides to stop me and try to make me feel shame or guilt, they can't, because you don't understand how much I've already healed. Does that make sense? Yes. I'm intentional about healing, so whatever you want to say doesn't affect me. However,
there's a point you cross that is very hard for someone to get
to pull you back.
To put you back.
I love that. There's a point, and when you cross that point, there's a resilience that cannot take you back. However, your journey is personal, meaning at every point, there will be that stumbling block. And it's to validate and say, yes, you will actually face it. Understand that it's a very commonly faced trinity and that there are resources and experiences, lived experiences that should allow you to know you're going to move through it and you're going to come out on the other side, whether or not it leaves a big scar or a small scar. A scar is a scar, and it shouldn't define who you become. It shouldn't, because you can overcome. You're bigger than your guilt, shame, and judgment, should you choose to be intentional about overcoming.
And I feel like there's something all these great people forget to cover. And this is the unholy trinity that is as a result.
Of shame, guilt, and judgment?
Yes, but is as a result of things beyond your control.
you know what happens? You completely shift. You're never the same person again when you've had to battle with the unholy trinity. By the way, guys, let's also think about the Holy Trinity. They can help you fight the unholy trinity. But you're not the same person, and it's not a bad thing. It's just something that you have to get familiar, because I've gotten familiar with whatever's shifted in me. Yeah.
Bottom line, accept, re-strategize, and find your healing path.
Find your healing path and find the low-hanging fruits. Find the daily ways that you can overcome. It's a daily step-by-step. Make the choice intentionally to say, tomorrow, I want to wake up with less guilt, with less shame, with less judgment. What does that look like for me? What do I have to do? Who do I have to surround myself with? What do I have to tell myself? And you'll find 5-10 years down the line, those little steps turn into your success story.